Hello, this is Matt Hesser with Dimensional Nomad Games, and welcome to Magic Adventures in FNM Commander, Episode 7. Today we're going to talk about the games that took place on September 8th, 2017, where I played the FNM Commander at the Xeus and Apollos local game store here in Pocatello, Idaho. Uh, had a lot of fun. I decided to go with one of my non-normal decks this week, so we get to see one of the ones that I haven't played with. This one was one that I originally built for a tournament that's actually based around what's called Imaginary Friends. So it's a fake commander that you built. So obviously I can't use that commander in this game. So it's an Abzan Enchantress deck. So I just picked a random Abzan commander that I just happened to have. In this case, it was Carador. So not that I care because I never actually cast the damn thing. So for those interested, I have my deck list on the screen. I also have it in the links below, so you can check that out later. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and get into the games. The first match was between myself playing my Enchantress deck with Carador at the helm. Then we had Marcel the Pretender, who is 1 blue, black, red for a 4/4 legendary creature human wizard. When Marcel the Pretender enters the battlefield, you may exile an artifact or creature card from your graveyard or hand and put a cage counter on it. Marcel the Pretender has all activated abilities of all cards you own in exile with cage counters on them. You may activate each of those abilities only once each turn. It's a really interesting commander. It's from the new Commander 2017 decks. Uh, because it's both creatures and artifacts, you get some really interesting combos with her, and it's always fun to see how people build it. I'm really looking forward to seeing it more often in the next few games or in the next few Commanders tournaments. So we'll see how that one goes. And then the other deck was Saskia the Unyielding. So black, red, green, white for a 3/4 legendary creature human soldier with vigilance and haste. And as Saskia the Unyielding enters the battlefield, choose a player, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to the chosen player. Now this card is really bonkers in 1v1. Fortunately, we're not playing 1v1. But even in multiplayer, what you do is you pick the person you're worried about as the chosen player, and then you attack someone who's wide open. That way you can make sure to guarantee that your attacks get in. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the game. So game one, pretty standard early game. Land, land, land. Turn two, my Enchantress deck plays Herald of the Pantheon, which is 1 and a green for a 2/2 creature Centaur Shaman that says your enchantment spells cost 1 less to cast, and whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 1 life. Illusionist Bracers was then played by the Marcel player, which is 2 mana for an artifact equipment. Whenever an ability of equipped creature is activated, if it isn't a mana ability, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy, and then it equips for 3. Really good with Marcel because everything it does is an activated ability. So, I mean, yeah, you're going to end up with some where you turn it into a Soul Ring or a Thran Dynamo or a Gilded Lotus or something like that so you can get 3 mana. But imagine if you copied, like, Arcanus the Omnipotent, who taps to draw 3 cards. So this would make you draw 6 cards. So pretty good. And then, unfortunately, nothing out of the Saskia player, who seemed to be having a little bit of a hard time in the early game. So moving on to turn 3, I played Gather of Graces, which is 1 to green for a 1/2 creature human druid. Gather of Graces is +1/+1 for each aura attached to it, and you can sacrifice an aura to regenerate the creature. Nothing much out of the Marcel player, and then finally Saskia decided to do something by playing Kadama's Reach, which is 2 and a green for a sorcery arcane. Search your library for up to 2 basic lands. Reveal those cards, put them onto the battlefield. Put 1 onto the battlefield, tap the other in hand. It's a really good ramp card because it puts 1 into play and gives you a guaranteed land drop if you didn't get the land drop that turn or for later on in the game. So that was our turns 2 and turn 3. So let's go ahead and move on. Again, not a whole heck of a lot happening in this early game. I decided to just start swinging with my creatures. Need to get some damage on the boards. I didn't have much else to play. Our Marcel player again played nothing. I mean, he played Temple of the False God, but unfortunately he only had 4 lands, so it didn't tap for anything. And our Saskia player decided to play Herald's Horn, which is 3 mana for an artifact. This is again from the new Commander set. It's an artifact that says, as Herald Horn enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creature spells you cast with the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. And at the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it is a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it in your hand. Now, the interesting thing is he then said dragons. Now, I was not expecting that out of the Saskia player, so it's fun to see that he decided to go a dragon bent, and I was looking forward to seeing what he decided to do. So the next turn, I decided to ramp it up just a little bit in the poke damage by playing Underworld Coinsmith, which is white and a black for a 2/2 enchantment creature human cleric. With whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life, and you can pay 1 and a black and 1 life to have each opponent lose a life. So for 2 mana, everyone loses 1 life, including you, because you had to pay 1. And then Saskia finally hit the field. So now we actually have a game. So we continue moving on. That was turn 5. So game's still a pretty slow pace at this point. Turn 6 saw Sun Titan. At this point, I had some fetch lands that I was continually cracking, so I was using Sun Titan to return that fetch land. Sun Titan is 4 and 2 white for a 6/6 creature giant with vigilance, and whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So lands have a converted mana cost of 0, so I was able to return my fetch land every time Sun Titan entered or attacked. And then I played Karametra. No, that was the next turn. That was pretty much the only thing that happened on that turn. So turn 6 was Sun Titan and a bunch of people attacking. So we moved on to turn 7. That's when Karametra got the Harvest into the field under my turn, my board. So 3 green white for a 6/7 legendary enchantment creature god with indestructible. So it's one of the Theros gods. It needs 7 devotion or it's not a creature. Devotion is when you the number of colored mana symbols in your thing. So in this case, combination of green and white. And then whenever you cast a creature spell, you may search your library for a forest or plains and put it on the battlefield tapped and shuffle your library. What's nice is it doesn't say basic, so I can go get dual lands. Fetch lands, shock lands, not fetch lands, obviously not fetch lands, but check lands, anything that says forest or plains on it. All right, so turn 6, I was tired of getting poked by Saskia, so Saskia was using his creatures to attack the Marcel player, and I was taking the damage. So I've played Faith Fetters, which is 3 and a white for an enchantment aura that says when Faith Fetters enters the battlefield, you gain 4 life, and then enchanted permanent can't attack, block, or use any activated abilities except for mana abilities. So it stops Saskia from attacking the Marcel player, so it'll stop attacking me. And then finally, Marcel entered the battlefield, and it caged Mirror Mad Phantasm. Now, I had never seen this creature before until Marcel player played him. And it is 3 blue for a 5/1 creature spirit with flying. And the ability that Marcel gets off of it is 1 and a blue, Mirror Mad Phantasm over, shuffles it into their library. And if the player does, they reveal cards from the top of the library until they reveal a card with that name. That player puts that card onto the battlefield, and all other cards revealed this way into their graveyard. Now, what's nice is with Marcel, it's a great raid to ramp into more abilities for Marcel because it'll tuck Marcel into the deck. You then put a bunch of cards from your graveyard, from your library into the graveyard, which is one of the places that Marcel can pull from, and then it puts Marcel back onto the battlefield. So for 2 blue, you basically get to fill your yard with fodder, and then she hits the battlefield, and you pick one to give it the ability. So it's a great card. And then Saskia did just Rampant Growth, which is search your library for a basic land, put it into play tapped. So we're seeing more ramp, we're seeing more control, and we're seeing the beginnings of the Marcel combos to start off. Now, I really couldn't let that go, so on turn 8, I played Plea for Guidance. So it's 5 and a white for a sorcery that says search your library for up to 2 equipment cards, reveal them and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your library. So I went ahead and got 1,000 Lashes and Sigil of the Empty Throne. Now 1,000 Lashes is 2 white black for an enchantment aura Enchanted creature can attack, block, or use its activated abilities. And at the beginning of the upkeep of the enchanted creature's controller, that player loses 1. So it not only stops Marcel from doing anything, it also then damages the Marcel player. And um, then Sigil of the Empty Throne is really good for an Enchantress built deck. It's a sigil, so it's 3 white for an enchantment. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. Really fun. So basically anything in the deck almost triggers this and gets me another 4/4 flying white angel. Great. So Marcel player, realizing he needed some blockers because he wasn't going to use Marcel, he played Lumigrad Augur. So it's 3 in a blue for a 2/2 creature Vidalcan Wizard, which is pay 1 and tap. Target player draws a card, then discards a card from his or her hand, and then if that player discards an artifact, it untaps the Augur. So it's a great loot card. I'm thinking this is one of the ones that he doesn't cage and just uses the ability because this is a tap ability. You don't want too many tap abilities on Marcel because then you have to find some way to untap, and you can only untap a certain amount of times. All right, so Saskia then replies with a Xur Druid, which is red-green for a 1/1 creature human druid that taps for a green mana. And whenever you tap the druid for a mana, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Really good pinger, nice mana dork, really good creature in my opinion overall. And then he played Crackling Doom, which is red, white, black for an instant that says Crackling Doom deals 2 damage to each opponent. And then each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures he or she controls. Now, I don't remember what I sacrificed. Oh, I got rid of Karametra because I didn't need the mana at the time, and I definitely wanted to keep the Sun Titan because the Sun Titan was basically getting me land every turn anyway. So that was nice. All right, so we move on to this is now turn 9. Now the game is going on longer than I'm used to because there's no combo players, which is fun. So we got to see a lot of different things. So the Sigil of the Empty Throne got played out. I then tried to cast No, I did cast Archetype of Finality, which is 4 and 2 black, for a 2/3 Enchantment creature Gorgon, which says my creatures have Death Touch and my opponent's creatures lose and can't have Death Touch. So that triggered my Sigil, which gave me another 4/4 Angel. And then our Marcel player played a Dublin Cube, which is 2 mana for an artifact that is pay 3, tap, double the amount of mana of each type of mana in your pool. So it's pretty nice if once you get to a certain threshold. Before that, it's less effective. And then Saskia played Collective Blessing, which is 3 green, white. So it's 6 mana for an enchantment that says creatures you control are +3/+3. So it's a nice big pump for your creatures, especially if you're throwing out creatures. I'm not sure how well it was going to do with him because I hadn't seen a lot of creatures out of him, but I was wondering if maybe he just wasn't drawing any of the creatures and he was just having a flood of mana because he played a mana every turn. So I knew he was drawing a lot of lands. But they did turn his Xur Druid into a 4/4, which he was then smacking into the Marcel player to hit me for 4, which is very obnoxious. All right, and so then we get to turn 10, and I finally started playing one of the big hitters in my deck. So it's Oratog, which is 1 and a white for a 1/2 creature Atog, and says sacrifice an enchantment. Oratog gets +2/+2 until end of turn. And then I played Rancor, which is 1 green for an enchantment aura that says the enchanted creature is +2/+0 and has trample. And then when Rancor is put onto the graveyard or into the graveyard from the battlefield, return Rancor to its owner's hand. Now what's nice is with Oratog, I can then sacrifice that Rancor whenever I want. Oratog gets bigger, Rancor bounces back to my hand, and I get the value from recasting a 1 casting cost enchantment over and over, give me a bunch of those 4/4 flying angels. Now I think I played it like 9 times on that turn. So if the Oratog could have attacked, it would have been huge because it was getting +18/+18, so it makes it a 19/20. And then, of course, 9 more 4/4 angels with flying is fantastic. So the Saskia player then plays Burnished Heart, which is just more ramp for him, the poor guy. Burnished Heart is 3 mana for a 2/2 artifact creature elk that has the ability of pay 3, sacrifice Burnished Heart, search your library for the 2 basic lands, and put them into play tapped. Of course, the Marcel player had the perfect answer to this, which is goddamn Cyclonic Rift. Now, for those of you who don't know, Cyclonic Rift is 1 blue for an instant that says return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Now, that's not a bad ability. That's actually great. It's just like Boomerang, only it can't be used to target your stuff. The thing that makes this outrageous is the Overload ability. So for 6 in a blue, you can cast this for Overload, and then it changes the text from target to each. So it returns each non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. It's a bonkers overpowered card. uh, I gladly run it in every single blue card deck I own, but it is so overpowered. Oh man, it really sets you back. Now, fortunately, the Marcel player didn't have a sufficient winning combo in his hand, so even though the rest of us were set back, he was tapped out for the most part by that point anyway. So on my turn, I was able to replay the 1,000 lashes on those Marcel, preventing it from doing anything, and I comboed off again in the next couple of turns. Just bunches of angels and things flying around and killing everybody. So that was game three. Unfortunately, the Saskia player didn't do much, so I'm not sure what his deck. He said he was playing dragons. I hoped to see some of them, but maybe next time we play, he'll have more dragons. All right, so let's get going on to game number 2. So we had my Enchantress deck. We had a Mayal the Anima, which is red, green, white for a 2/3 legendary creature elf shaman. And her ability is 3 red, green, white, tap. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature card with power 5 or greater from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So, generally, something with 5 power costs at least 6, so it's not like a mana efficient to do that until you get more creatures in your deck that are like 8s and 9s. The thing that makes it nice is you can do it at any time, so you can do that in response to people. And because it's an activated ability, it benefits from things like the Illusionist Bracers we mentioned last game. It benefits from things like Rings of Brighthearth, which copies an activated ability. So there's lots of ways to get lots of creatures using this ability. Plus, it lets you look at the top 5 cards of your library. So hopefully you'll have some kind of a bomb within that range. And then the third player was playing Partner Commanders. So for those that are unaware, Partner Commanders say that you can have 2 commanders if both have the partner ability. So this was in the 2016 commander set. So that's where we got all these partner commanders. So it's nice seeing people still playing those even a year later. So the first one is Vile Smasher the Fierce, which is 1 black red for a 2/3 legendary creature Goblin Berserker. Whenever you cast your first spell each turn, Vile Smasher the Fierce deals damage equal to that spell's converted mana cost to an opponent chosen at random. So yeah, it's random damage, but if you've only got 2 or 3 opponents, it's not really that random because you're gonna hit one of them. Um, Plus, generally, when you because you combo it with another creature to give you access to bigger spells. In this case, he comboed it with Thrasios Triton Hero, which is green blue for a 1/3 legendary creature Merfolk Wizard. His ability is pay 4, scry 1, then reveal the top card of your library if it's a land, put it into play. Otherwise, put it in your draw a card. So it gives you the green and blue, which has some amazing pump abilities. Plus, if you're playing counter spells on your opponent's turn, that still counts as the first spell of that turn. So even just using the counter spells, you're able to get some incremental damage and prevent your opponents from doing anything. All right, so that's enough about the commanders. Let's go ahead and get into the game itself. So, first turn, once again, basic land on everybody's choice. Turn 2 is when we get to start seeing some stuff in play. Vile Smasher decided to play Goblin Electromancer, which is blue-red for a 2/2 creature Goblin Wizard. And instants and sorceries you cast cost 1 less to cast. Always nice when you're paying less to make those big spells. And I played a Core Spirit Dancer, which is 1 and a white for a 0/2 creature Core Wizard. It is +2/+2 for each aura attached to it, and whenever you cast an aura, you may draw a card. And then turn 3, our Vile Smasher continued to ramp out. He played a Chromatic Lantern, which is 3 mana for an artifact that says your lands have tap for any color, and it also taps for any color, so it's a great mana rock. And then I played Pacifism onto the Goblin Electromancer, mostly just so I can draw a card and so I can make sure I guarantee a little bit of damage later on. Alright, so moving on. Vile Smasher hits the board, and then he decides to Ponder, which is 1 blue for sorcery. that says look at the top 3 cards of your library and put them back in any order. You then may shuffle your library. So if you don't like any of those 3, you can shuffle your library, and then you draw a card. Unfortunately, he'd already played Vial Smasher, so Ponder doesn't count as the first one. Now I noticed that he now had 2 cards between the Goblin and the other Goblin, so I played Defense of the Heart, which is 3 and a green for an enchantment that says during your upkeep, if one or more of your opponents controls 3 or more creatures, sacrifice Defense of the Heart, search your library for up to 2 creatures, and then put those creatures into play. So I just needed him to have 1 more creature. Oh, I think I played that wrong. I thought it was 2 creatures. Oh, whoops. Looked like I made a play mistake, so I would have lost that game anyway. Okay, so knowing that, I already know that I did that wrong, so let's move on. So Vial Smasher plays Sensei's Dividing Top, which is 1 mana for an artifact. It says pay 1, look at the top card of your library and put them back in. Top 3 cards of your library, put them back in any order, and then you can tap to do what's called a top swap. So you draw a card, so whichever one you just stack to the top of your deck. Then you take Sensei's Dividing Top and put it on top of its owner's deck. So that's why it's a swap. So you're swapping out the top card for Sensei's Dividing Top. Then I went ahead and got Karametra and Celestial Ancient, even though I shouldn't have because I thought it was 2 creatures, not 3. So I made a huge play mistake. But anyway, so Karametra, you heard before, Celestial Ancient is the new one. It's 3 white white for a 3/3 creature elemental with flying, and whenever you cast an elemental spell, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. I think I played. Yeah, I played the Celestial Ancient at this point. Because I. Wait, no. They both went into play, right? Since the heart puts them in play. Yeah, they both went into play. So I didn't have to play. I didn't have anything to play at that point. All right, so unfortunately, they both had answers. So Unlicensed Disintegration was played at the end of my turn, which is 1, a black and a red for an instant that destroys target creature, and then if you control an artifact, it also deals 3 damage to that creature's controller. And then Vial Smasher also randomly deals 3 damage. And so he didn't play anything else after that, but the wild player then decided to. No, he then terminated another one of my creatures. That's what he played. And then I played. Well, I tried to play Archetype of Finality again, only to get it counterspelled by the Vial Smasher player. So he's getting a lot of value out of that poor Vial Smasher. So we see the return of Sensei's Dividing Top. I then played Enchantress' Presence, which is 2 and a green for an enchantment that says whenever you play an enchantment spell, draw a card. And then Nylea, God of the Hunt, which is 3 and a green for a 6/6 legendary enchantment creature god. With indestructible, it's not a creature unless you have 3 or 5 or more green devotion. Your other creatures have trample, and 3 and a green target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. I like that it triggers both Karametra and my draw effects, so that's why all the gods are in there. So we move on to turn 8. So now we're at turn 8. So nobody's comboed out yet, which is why I like using some of these other more obscure decks. I don't have to worry about other people comboing or me comboing turn 5. Makes for a more dynamic, interactive game. So Thrasios finally sees the board. I reply with the Archetype of Courage, which is the white archetype for 1 and 2 white for a 2/2 enchantment creature, human soldier. Then my creatures have first strike, and my opponent's creatures can't have and lose first strike. And then played a Sphere of Safety, which is 4 and a white for an enchantment. Creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker you control unless their controller pays X for each of those creatures, where X is the number of enchantments I control. So I play a ton of enchantments, so I was not worried about anyone attacking me anytime. What I was worried about is direct damage from Vial Smasher. So speaking of Vial Smasher, the next turn he plays Treasure Cruise, which is 7 and a blue, so it's an 8 mana cost spell for a sorcery that says Delve. So each card you exile from your graveyard while casting the spell pays for 1. So he can reduce the cost a lot by exiling all those excess spells sitting in his graveyard. And then draws 3 cards. So he just smacks somebody for 8. Really, really dangerous. And then Mael plays a Sakalum Godspeaker. I'd never seen this creature before, but it seems interesting. It's 2 and a green for a 2/2 creature elf druid. And it says tap, reveal any number of creatures with power 5 or greater from your hand, and then add green to your mana pool for each card revealed this way. So it's possible to get a bunch of mana, but that means you're holding on to a bunch of big creatures. So it's one of those, like, it's a catch-22. It's like, yeah, I get the mana to cast the creatures, but then I can only cast creatures because I've put them all into play already. I tried to respond by playing True Conviction, which is 3 white, white, white for an enchantment that says creatures you control have double strike and lifelink. Would have been huge, but the Vile Smasher player couldn't let that happen, so he said Swan Song, which is 1 blue for an instant that counters target enchantment, instant, or sorcery spell, and then his controller gets a 2/2 bird token with flying. My poor, poor enchantments. There's a lot of counter spells going on in this game. Oh, wait, there's more stuff. So, I still had a little bit of mana, right? A little bit of mana. So I played a Spirit Loop, which is 1 and a white for an enchantment aura that says enchanted creature you control. So it can only hit mine, and then the enchanted creature deals damage. You gain that much life, and just like Rancor, if it dies, it comes back to my hand. Then I played Helm of the Gods, which is 1 mana for an artifact equipment. It says equipped creature is +1/+1 for each equipment or enchantment you control, and equips for 1. So I was getting a big swinger that was able to smash face and gave me life, so that was really nice. All right, so now we're getting into turn 10. Oh, this is when things start to happen. So Vile Smasher plays Sakashima the Imposter, which is 2 and 2 blue for a 3/1 legendary creature human rogue that comes into play as a copy of a creature you control, only it keeps the name Sakashima the Imposter. So what's nice is that lets you copy things like legendary creatures. So Sakashima became a copy of Vile Smasher. So it was Sakashima the Smasher, which means that every first spell he cast then hit 2 times. So it was getting pretty ridiculous. He then followed that up by playing Rhystic Study, which is 2 and a blue for an enchantment that says whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 1. So that was getting pretty out of hand. Then Mael decides to up the ante by playing Savala's Stampede, which is 4 green green for a sorcery that has Council's Dilemma. Starting with you, each player votes for wild or free. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card for each wild vote. Put those creature cards onto the battlefield, then shuffle the rest into your library. And then you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield for each free vote. So he picked free, both of us picked wild because I wanted to see what he got. So the 2 we got out of the deck was Guy's Revenge and Juniper Order Ranger. Guy's Revenge is 5 green green for an 8/5 creature elemental that can't be countered, has haste, and it can't be the target of non-green spells or abilities from non-green sources. So really nice creature. Yeah, it's 7 mana for an 8/5, but it's got some great stuff in it. Now Juniper Order Ranger is even better. So it's 3 a green and a white for a creature human knight. It's a 2/4, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, both it and the ranger get a +1/+1 counter. And then he followed that by with a Living Hive, which is 6 green green for a 6/6 creature elemental insect with trample. And then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you put that many 1/1 green insect tokens onto the battlefield. So with the ranger, it's fantastic because the ranger gets super buffed, and each of those elementals or the insects get +1/+1. All right, so I needed to stop some of these shenanigans. So 1,000 Lashes showed up to stop the Living Hive from doing anything, and then I played Fate Unraveler. So it's 3 and a black for an enchantment creature Hag. It's a 3/4 that says whenever an opponent draws a card, it takes Fate Unraveler deals 1 damage to that player. So it's a nice little poke damage, especially in Commander where we all like to draw cards, especially someone who's playing Rhystic Study. So we see the return of the Senses Divining Top. Mael player plays a Not Vine Mystic, which is red, green, white for a 2/2 creature elf druid, which has pay 1 and tap, add red, green, white to your mana pool. Really interesting creature. Pretty good ramp. So it's pay 1 to get 3, so it nets you 2 mana. So it's basically a 2/2 that taps for 2 as long as you got something to feed into it. Then he played a Seer's Lantern, which is 3 mana for an artifact that taps for a colorless, or you can pay 2 and tap to scry 1. So not a bad card. Plus, it lets you look at the top of your kit deck to make sure that you've got something, hopefully, for your Mael deck to swing into once you ever got the balance. Of course, that meant that the board was getting out of hand, especially my board. So what does happen? Freaking Cyclonic Rift. Like, this is the weekend of the Cyclonic Rift. Oh, I had so much stuff in play, but it all went back. Fortunately, Not a lot of damage because the CMC, even though you overloaded it for 7, is still only 2. So Sakashima and um, Vile Smasher only threw out 2 damage apiece. So that was an easy storm to weather. But I had a huge board state at the time. I'd drawn a bunch of cards. So I was kind of worried until I top decked Open the Vaults. So Open the Vaults is 4 white white for a sorcery that says return all artifacts and enchantment cards from all graveyards to the battlefield under their owner's control. At this point, the only people with artifacts or enchantments in the graveyard was me. I had discarded like 13 enchantments off of that Cyclonic Rift because he had done it at the end of my turn, or before the end of my turn. So I had a huge board state and was able to recover super quickly and just overrun both players in the table. So thank God for top decks of the century. Open the vaults. Oh my God. But, oh, Cyclonic Rift. Why Cyclonic Rift? Why? Oh, screw you, Cyclonic Rift. All right, that's enough bitching about Cyclonic Rift. Let's get on to game number 3. So we got to play against Kess Dissident Mage. She's from the new Commander 2017 decks. So it's usually combo player playing this. It is 1 blue, black, red for a 3/4 legendary creature human wizard with flying. During each of your turns, you may cast an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. And if a card cast this way would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile instead. So it basically gives all of your cards flash, but you can only use it once and only on your turn. Really nice. Definitely adds for combo players, so a lot of fun effects to see what people do with that. All right, so with that in mind, the next player was playing Shroom the Hegemon. Now I've played against this guy before. Hardly ever actually plays the commander, which is a white, blue, black for a 5/5 legendary artifact creature Sphinx with flying. And when it enters the battlefield, you reanimate one of your artifacts. So put something from your graveyard back into play. Now, I've played against him before. Some of you are familiar with that if you've listened or watched these videos before. He's basically a combo player. It's a pretty convoluted combo, so I don't mind running into it. So it's fun to watch. But it definitely meant I was on a timetable with this game and needed to move it up. So this is one of those games where we actually had some early game aggression going on. So Kess started things off with a Serum Vision, which is 1 blue for sorcery that says draw a card, then scry 2. And then I followed that with a Soul Ring, and then the Helm of the God. So I was sitting pretty. I had 3 lands in my hand. I thought I was going to do really well. So next turn, we got a lot more ramp out of our Kess player with Mindstone and Chrome Mox. Mindstone is 2 mana for an artifact that taps for a mana, or you can pay 1, tap, and sacrifice to draw a card, so it's good late game and early game. Chrome Mox is 0 for an artifact that has Imprint. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile a non-artifact non-land from your hand, and it then taps for 1 mana of any of the exiled cards' colors. So he exiled a blue card, so he can tap it for blue. Then our combo player, Mr. Shroom, transmuted his Perplex. So Perplex is normally 1 a blue and a black, so 3 mana for an instant that counters target spell unless the controller discards their hand. But for Transmute for the same amount of mana, you can discard the card and search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost. So in this turn, in this case, he went ahead and got Frantic Search, which is 2 and a blue for an instant that draws you 2 cards, then you discard 2 cards, and then you untap up to 3 lands. So it loots twice, basically for free. And then I demonically tutored. What did I get? I got Sigil of the Empty Throne because I wanted to make a nice board because I had enough mana in play that I wasn't too worried about it. So we're all searching for things. Mystical Tutor gets played by the Kess player for 1 blue, which is an instant. Search your library for an instant or sorcery, and then put it on top of your library. And then, of course, I played the Sigil of the Empty Throne. And then bad things start to happen as we move on to turn 4. So first, he does Preordain. So this is the Kess player again. So Preordain was 1 blue for sorcery, scry 2, then draw a card. And he played Dak Faden, which is 1 a blue and a red for a 3 loyalty planeswalker That's +1 is target player draws 2, then discards 2. But his -2 is gain control of target artifact. In this case, my Soul Ring. So he stole my Soul Ring, and I'm sitting there at 3 lands. I thought I'd be fine because I had a Soul Ring, so that gives me 5 mana. But no, he had to take my Soul Ring, which means I did Jack Diddley for a while. We see the set Frantic Search come into play for the Shroom combo player. He then also plays Impulse, which is 1 a blue for an instant that says look at the top 4 cards of your library and put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. And then I played Sterling Grove, which was green and a white for an enchantment that says all other enchantments you control can't have Shroud, and you can pay 1, sacrifice it to search your library for an enchantment card, reveal that card, and shuffle your library to put that card on top of it. So I got hosed hard by that deck fade and stealing my Soul Ring. It was pretty bad. All right, so Kess finally sees play, which lets him recast his Mystical Tutor. I don't remember what he put on top, but I do know what he put into play, which was Frozen Ether, which is 3 and a white, 3 and a blue for an enchantment that says artifacts, creatures, and lands your opponent's control come into play tapped. So that's just an obnoxious card. We then see Shroom transmute Teleria West. Teleria West normally enters the battlefield tapped, and then taps to add a blue mana, but he transmuted it to get Temple of the False God. I then use Enlightened Tutor, which is 1 white for an instant that searches for an artifact or enchantment, put it on top, and I got Rancor because I needed to get some damage out. I got a Rancor. Do I have a new creature at this point? Yes. Because I had a 4/4 Angel that had been created by using my Sterling Grove. And then, of course, playing the Rancor let me get more Angels and things like that. So, move on to turn 6. Ignore the Cyclonic Rift. This is just me bitching because he went and got Cyclonic Rift with his Mystical Tutor. He didn't use it at the time, but I knew this card was going to come into play soon. I was just waiting. So he did Preordain again, search his deck. We see our combo player try to do Mana Severance, which is 1 to blue for a sorcery that says search your library for any number of land cards and remove them from the game. So he's basically wanting to thin his deck out as much as possible so that he combos into things. Basically, his deck does a card that says target player mills until they hit a land. So he mills his entire deck and then combos out with the effects in the graveyard. But fortunately, the other combo player, the Kess combo player, did an Arcane Denial, which is a counter spell for 1 to blue that counter target spells, and then the controller of that spell can draw 2 cards in the next turn, and then you draw a card. Then I played Ortog, so I began to do my combos. Wait, did I actually play the Sterling Grove? Yeah, I played the Sterling Grove. So yeah, so I played Ortog, and then we continued on. So still hadn't seen the Cyclonic Rift. We're moving on to turn 7, so he's still trying to combo, set up all the pieces he needs. So he gets Chromatic Lantern out, and then he does a Limdul's Vault, which is a blue and a black for an instant that says, look at the top 5 of your library, and then as many times as you choose, you may pay 1 life, put those cards in the bottom of your library in any order, then look at the top 5 cards of your library. Then shuffle your library and put the last card you looked at this way on top of it in any order. So basically, for a life each, you can look at the top 5 cards of the library until you find the 5 that you want to leave on top. He went through 6 life to do that. Unfortunately, not nearly enough. Then he tried to do a Toxic Deluge. So Toxic Deluge is 2 and a black for a sorcery that says, as an additional cost to cast Toxic Deluge, pay X life, and then all creatures get neg X until end of turn. So he did it for 2, trying to kill off my poor Ortog. Unfortunately, he forgot that I had the Sterling Grove in play, so I just sacked Sterling Grove to give my Ortog +2/+2, so it was able to survive. And then the combo player transmuted his Clutch of the Undercity. No, he used the Clutch of the Undercity to bounce Kess and force him to do something. All right, so then I got back in the swing of things. I played an Argothian Enchantress, which is 1 and a green for a creature human druid with Shroud. And whenever you cast an enchantment, draw a card. I then played Rancor for 1 green, and then I played Helm of the Gods. So I was setting up really nicely. And of course, that meant we got to see the Cyclonic Rift. Yay, Cyclonic Rift. Freaking Cyclonic Rift. And then after that, the combo player played Doomsday, which is his combo maker. It's black, black, black for a sorcery that says pay half your life, round it up. Put your graveyard on top of your library, then remove all but 5 cards of your library from the game, and then put the rest on top of your library in any order. So he basically just puts enough draw effects and mana to play Lab Maniac, which is 2 and a blue for a 2/2 creature human wizard. It says if you would draw a card where your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. Normally you lose the game at that point, but in this case he just plays his draw mechanics, and then he wins the game. Freaking Cyclonic Rift. So yeah, this is the weekend of the Cyclonic Rift. It kind of just took over the game and made it miserable. But you know what? It's a great card. I definitely recommend anyone who can run it, you run it because it is fantastic. It is a game changer. Usually, if you cast it, it means either you're panicking or you're setting up to win the next turn. Either way, I still had a great time. It was nice to use one of my other decks instead of Animar or Captain Sisay. Next week, of course, I'm going to be keeping Captain Sisay. I'm still testing the decks that I've built from the Commander 2017 decks. I got all 4 of the decks, and then I've built cats into 2 different decks, vampires in 2 different decks. I've got dragons I'm building into 2 different decks. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the wizards yet. I'm still playing with it. I know I'm going to part it out into several other decks. Kess is going into Nekasar and all kinds of things like that. But we'll see where that goes. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you liked it, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, how I can make it better. If you liked my deck, you will see the deck list in the description. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. And thank you for watching. Have a great day.